Thank you for joining this video session. So on this video, I'll focus on the introduction of a manuscript for scientific publication. So if you are visiting the site and if you are interested in this video, it means that either you are already writing a manuscript or you have some data to develop into a manuscript. Whether you are an experienced researcher with dozens of publications already or a beginner, this is the right place to start because all of us, despite all years of experience in writing manuscripts and publishing in leading journals, we always uh, find it useful to do some refresher on how to write the introduction section and the discussion section. So today I will deal with the introduction section, and then in my next video I'll also show you how the introduction and the discussion section are interrelated and how to simplify the writing process for you. In the middle, you have the methods and the results section, which are usually straightforward if you have done the study properly. So let me start with the general introduction of why do you have to publish anything in the first place. So there should be a reason why you are thinking of publishing your work. There are many reasons, including sometimes this is a study requirement. So if you are a PhD student or a master's student, then it could be a requirement that you have to write a manuscript of either for publication or to be published as a monograph, depending on the school you are in. So it can be because it's a study requirement, or sometimes people use it for promotion, for grant writing, especially for grant writing. Some preliminary data, some previous publications are often required by a major funding agencies. So that could be the reason why you want to publish your paper. In academics, it's also a requirement that you publish certain number of papers in order to get some academic advancement. So that could be the other reason why you are writing a paper. Advancement in policies also, paper publishing a paper is usually used as one of the advocacy strategies. So when you publish, when your material is peer reviewed, externally reviewed, then it has more credibility than making statements based on your opinion or some observations. So this could be another reason why you are planning to publish your paper. So there could be many other reasons, but in any case, you have now decided to write the introduction section of your manuscript, and now you're in the right place to know, how to learn how to write the introduction section of your paper. So just to give you a quick recap, if you have not heard about the IMRAD structure, you have to really spend a minute or two here, because the IMRAD is a general structure of a scientific paper. So the I stands for introduction, and where you write why, the reason why you are really doing this study. So it includes the rationale, the research scope, and the objectives of the study. So this is what I will be discussing in the next few slides. And then you have the method section, which, the M stands for the methods and what you did. So if you have done a study, you know what you did. So this should be straightforward. And then the results section is what you found. So if you have found it, and if you have done the right calculations or qualitative analysis, then you know exactly what you found from your study. So that should also be straightforward, and you have to put it in your manuscript. But the other section of the IMRAD structure is the discussion, which I will discuss in another small, short video, is the discussion section, which is another tricky area because it is also the interpretation of the whole work that you have done. So that's another topic, but I'm just giving you a hint that there will be another video on this topic on the discussion section. And then when you combine the introduction and the discussion, and when you have the methods and the results section in the middle, then you know how to write a publishable manuscript that can have some impact on the future of yourself or your career or life in general. Okay, so the introduction section. So the introduction section has two main purposes. The first purpose is to attract readers. So this is people should know, what you are talking about. And then if you make it put it in a compelling way, then the readers will be interested in reading the rest of the manuscript. In the same vein, you have to also tell the readers what to expect in the manuscript. The introduction section must demonstrate to reviewers that they are reading the work of a professional. So when you write a manuscript for scientific publishing, it will be reviewed by experts in the field, by professionals, and then you have to show that you really understand what you are writing about. You are not copying ideas from others. You understand it and put it in writing in the introduction section. So basically, it has four main elements. The first one is the background of the research question. The second component is the previous research in the area. The third is, the problems in that research in the past, what you are trying, to show. And you have to tell the readers what do you want to fix by doing this research. So when you have these four elements in the introduction, then the reader will understand and will be interested to read the rest of the manuscript or the published paper. So the introduction is not, a chunk of some thoughts and some statistics or data. It has four key elements: background to the research question, some review of the previous research, and showing the gaps in previous research, and then the objective, how to do it to fix that problem. So when you write the introduction section, each of these four elements should be there. Each of the four elements. They can range from being just one sentence to one paragraph. So your introduction section is approximately 4 paragraphs. It can be 5, 6, or whatever, but this is just an estimate. There are some exceptions, some in basic sciences, in some basic sciences articles, they include, an overview of the methods already in the introduction section. And they may even give you some of the results in the introduction section. So again, this is to create interest in the reader, to create some level of suspense so that they will be interested in reading the rest of the manuscript. Sometimes some journals expect also extensive literature review and current theories. This usually comes in some high impact journals. For example, in the Lancet, they really want to see some systematic review of literature before you conducted the current study. So this is clearly indicated in the guidelines of the journal itself. And therefore, you have to always check the journal instructions before you really spend your time on writing the introduction section for a particular journal. Sometimes, so most of this presentation is based on my experience as a predominantly quantitative researcher, but sometimes I have been doing also some qualitative studies. So in qualitative studies, they also require a summary of theories used and the theoretical framework that you have used in the manuscript. So bear this thing also in mind if you are writing a qualitative paper, then you have to really think of your theories and the frameworks that you have used in preparing the manuscript. Okay, so the first element, therefore, is background to the research question. I started with things to avoid. You have to avoid too many details, don't be too trivial also. Focus on new developments. don't focus on things that have already been said and you can find in in the general literature or on the website. Focus on some new developments and help the reader understand what you are talking about. And you should always stop, talking about unessential things and use reader-friendly language also. So these are general guidance. But in the background section, so what you start with is the introduction with a few words about the overall research topic. This topic can be about specific health issues. My research is mostly on tuberculosis and HIV, so if I continue to cite something from TB or HIV throughout this presentation, please bear with me. That's my background, and I'll be happy to even give more details on this topic in the future. But for now, so the examples of things that you can write in the introduction include, the disease burden. For example, for TB, we always talk about the global burden, the regional burden, and then you go to um, the national or specific site burden. Or it can be something very specific to as a risk factor, for example, for HIV. So if what you are writing is about HIV infection, you can talk about risk factors and how it affects and so on. It can be about a treatment, new treatment regimens, or it can be about a diagnostic technique, or this could be about a key population group, for example, for about children. So then you have to really give some background to the research questions that you are posing here to the reader. Then select topics that best reflect the unique contribution of your research. So if you take tuberculosis, for example, it's a broad area. What are we talking about? Is it about prevention? If it's about prevention, then are we talking about preventive treatment, or are we talking about infection control, or is it very specific to case finding, or is it treatment regimen? So you have to be very specific when you give your background to the research question. Okay. So these are the few things I just wanted to re-emphasize these, that we have to really avoid too many details, focus on new developments, and ignore unessential things and focus on key things, and avoid also jargons and use reader-friendly language. So the whole idea of writing is to make it clear to the reader so that he or she will understand with ease. And then the second component, as I mentioned earlier, is the previous research. This should flow logically, from the background. You have to continue. Once you give some background about the topic itself, then go to the previous research. You have to go to the general previous research and then go to specific to the content, to the topic that you are really focusing on. And then you have to do some succinct literature review and update them as you write your manuscript. You may have done this literature review during your proposal development or study planning, but when you write the manuscript, you have to update it. If your manuscript, the proposal was done in 2019 and you are writing your manuscript in 2024, and then you should update the literature up to 2024. So that's crucial. And usually it's advisable to go as far back as at least 10 years when you do some kind of previous literature review. Sometimes you don't find good literature, that some areas are understudied. And therefore, if we are in such a situation, then you have to explain it, why. And you have to also discuss existing beliefs and their origins. You can put it in a slightly different way. And you can't just say that there's no literature, so I skip this portion. No, you have to show why there is lack of literature in this area. Sometimes literature can be present in another language, so you can explain that, and you can mention that your study has focused on literature that has been written in certain language, for example, in English, which we are now using in this presentation. And therefore, the past research is a really crucial component. And then once you do your review, you have to show what are the gaps in the past research and why you have to do this current research. So you have to explain why you did the study. If you have, already plenty literature around this area, um, you have to justify why you did, because there should be a clear gap analysis in the previous research. So possible problems with the past research could include a small sample size, for example. If someone has done a study already, and that study was based on just uh, 50 individuals, and your study is on 5,000, then there's a clear reason why you are doing this study. You are using a bigger sample size, and the results that you show are also more credible. So you have to really say that more clearly. Perhaps the previous study has done a short follow-up period, just for 6 months, and you have done it for 10 years or 5 years. So then you have to really show that your study is really further advancement over what has already been there. Maybe someone has done a study on a very selected group, and then yours is also broader in selection, and therefore yours is more generalizable. Then you have to explain that. Sometimes some people use wrong methods. It could be lab methods or even the statistical analysis. So then you have to really explain this. So you have to explain the improvements in your study. But when you do that, you have to be very careful with the criticism. You have to avoid this, especially unless you have a better result. You have to use positive tone, because the chances of the reviewer being the past researcher is also very high in most instances. So they may not be happy, and that may lead to some unpleasant decisions on your manuscript. So you have to be very diplomatic in the way how you do. But if you have to criticize, then put it clearly with clear evidence also. And then the reviewer can also be convinced. So because they are researchers themselves, so that's okay. So the problems with the past research is what you do next. And then finally, you have to tell us in your final section of your introduction what you did to fix these problems. What did you do? So you can conclude by telling the major improvements that you have identified. You may say that we have used a significantly larger sample size to show this aspect of the study. And this is also the opportunity to highlight the innovative features of your study. Innovation is always important. You have to show us and convince the reader that you have used some new ways of doing something. And then you have to state your objectives very clearly. Any introduction without objective will likely attract some rejection from reviewers, because the whole purpose is to show and to have an objective based on the previous three descriptions of the introduction section. Then you have to state the objective. So the objective of this study is to demonstrate this, or to assess, or to evaluate the impact of whatever you have done, depending on the type of the research. And it's also good to end with a one-sentence overview of your study. And sometimes we put kind of a sentence where we mention everything, starting with the introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So you may say that using a cluster randomized trial, we have demonstrated that digital adherence technologies can improve treatment outcomes if they are properly implemented. I'm just making up some conclusions, but then so the reader will be more interested also in getting to the end of your paper and read the rest of your manuscript. So this is more or less what is I have for you on writing the introduction. I'll be happy to add more details. If you have any question, please feel free to write and put something on the comment section of this video. I will be available to respond to your questions. Thank you very much.